The Shift is brought to you by SE Healthcare. Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dr. Andrea Coyle. Welcome back to The Shift, everyone. I'm so excited. I'm really excited to welcome on our show today, Stephanie Clements. And by the way, Stephanie, congratulations. Becker's named you as one of the 274 chief nursing officers in the country to know in 2025. So congratulations.
Wow, thank you so much. I am in an amazing company in that group and feel very honored to be able to be recognized.
For sure. You are totally with a great group of chief nursing officers. So Stephanie, you've not only led clinical care in your career and a hospital, but now you're in this big role as the chief nurse executive of Mercy. So if you wouldn't mind taking a few moments, give us a little bit about your clinical background, and then we're going to dive into some really great questions.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, lots of different clinical practice. I started as a labor and delivery nurse 32 years ago. It's hard to even say that now. And just was able to progress through different forms of leadership. I've led at all levels as a manager, as a director, as a house supervisor. I even was the CEO at a surgical hospital for several years. And so jumping into this role has just been an incredible blessing. I get to serve alongside more than 15,000 nurses in our organization. So truly honored and also humbled by the position that I find myself in today.
I love that you said you're humbled. You are such a humble leader, so thank you. Um, when you're responsible for 15,000 nurses, you just said 15,000, leadership really stops being about having all the right answers and it starts being about shaping the right conditions, shaping the culture. So that's where I want to get started, Stephanie. Um, when you first stepped into a system level role, what was the biggest leadership shift that you didn't fully appreciate until you were in the seat?
Yeah, I think for my peers in a similar system level role would probably agree. The biggest shift was not being involved in day-to-day operations and really starting to see my role, the focus, my priorities, more about leading through influence than from proximity, right? Because we have over 50 hospitals, and there's no way that I could be proximal to where the actual patient care is happening. And so it really did take a mindset shift and really some reflection about what that meant. And I love that you mentioned culture because truly, I don't think we ever stop working on the culture. And I see this as a huge opportunity to be able to serve the CNOs at our hospitals, the leaders at our facilities in a way that pours energy into them so that then they can have maximum impact. So it truly has taken some time to really evaluate what my contribution is. Very different than being involved day to day in what's happening. And the recent weather that we've had is a great example because formerly at a facility level, you are just deeply embedded in what's happening and all of the operations and how we're going to ensure we have enough people to care for the patients that we serve. And in this role, it was more about like providing support and connecting the dots, but also being that ear to listen and having my team know that I've been there and done that. So that credibility comes in handy when you're leading at scale rather than leading through proximity.
I think that's brilliant. And, does it feel like, Stephanie, that prior to being in this role at the system level, you were a problem solver, and now you're more of an architect? Does that sound pretty accurate?
I love that as an architect because really, yeah, about it's more about like vision casting and just creating culture from a distance and really thinking about the way that the different personalities, the different gifts that all of our leaders bring to our organization, weaving them together to create something really beautiful, very different from the day-to-day operations, and being able to really find joy in that problem solving. So you have to shift and really find joy in celebrating others, but facilitating their ability to do the work that we know is very important and valuable. I love that. I've never really thought about it as an architect, probably because I can't draw. but but I
Because we're
do
nurses,
love,
right?
yeah, that's right. That's right. I can draw a great stick figure, but I do love, crafting the thoughts and ideas and really like weaving things together that makes sense. Because truly, within our own organization, we've got leaders gifted with very unique skill sets that are unlike one another. And so it's been really fun to sort of sit back and observe and think, wow, this person's really good at one aspect of what we need. And, I've got someone else who's really good at another aspect, and being able to bring their ideas together has provided a lot of joy. And really, we're finding it to be very effective when we look at designing an operating model and designing systems that fold in evidence-based practice, that fold in good quality care that we know all of our patients deserve, and developing things that are really scalable, that we can implement throughout all of our facilities. Because I believe that someone at one of our big trauma centers deserves the same care as someone at one of our rural critical access hospitals. And by weaving together the gifts of all of our leaders, we've been able to implement some really incredible things.
I know you have, because I stay up to date with you on LinkedIn, and I know that you're just doing, and your team. It's you
Oh,
and the team at
all the
Mercy
team.
just
Yeah.
doing, yeah. I mean, let's give credit to the Mercy team, like just really great work. And it's your vision. What are there one or two things, Stephanie, that you had to unlearn? Because
Mm.
you've actually nailed it. But if there's one or two things that you really had to unlearn, you've actually said when you're in the day to day, it looks really different when you're at the system level. But
Mhm.
what are one or two things you had to unlearn?
I think I had to unlearn that was not, um, speed wasn't my goal any longer. It's sustainability, creating designing things that will be sustainable and replicable. And I think when you're in day-to-day operations, it's all about how quickly you can get something done and then move on to the next task. So, and then I think the other thing that I had to learn, or even unlearn, is just the growth and the trust to allow the leaders to lead. And I'm not the fixer anymore. So creating things that are sustainable and being really comfortable with being in the shadows. I think, and I don't mean that like as a CNO of a hospital that you need to be front and center of everything, but my job is to equip. It is not to be the fixer, and being really comfortable watching others get to do the most important work, which is lead the teams on a day-to-day basis. So those are some things. I'll be honest. I mean, I've only been in this role since April of last year. So over 9 months, it's taken a lot of self-reflection and really confirming that I know God breathed this opportunity into my life at this time, and embracing that, really embracing his timing. And I would say that that's another aspect that's been really important, is being comfortable listening, um, and just being guided by something way bigger than myself.
Oh my gosh. So this is one thing that I so admire about you. And I had Stephanie Beavers on, I had Dr. Tammy Webb on, all great nurse leaders. And the one thing that I admire so much is your ability to remain calm. So when you mentioned that speed, the day to day, you're always trying to keep up. I think now it's what I see with great leaders such as yourself is you have that ability to be intentional, purposeful, and be present. Because let's face it, right now, there's a million things you could be doing, but you are taking time to be present and purposeful with me and all the shifties so that the shifties can learn from you. And I admire that about, so many great leaders. Leah Blackwell does it really well. She's in Florida, and she does that really well. So kudos to y'all. That's just amazing.
Thank you for creating a space. Honestly, it's your podcast is a gift to nursing leaders, and so I appreciate. It's an honor to be able to be considered part of that group, being a shifty.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And honestly, Stephanie, that was the whole intent of the podcast is to create this community and let's bring us together. And some of the things that I'm dealing with, some of the things you're dealing with, sometimes they're all the same. And you keep bringing out key leadership strategies, one of which is listening and being embracing different ideas, because that's the true sense of diversity. And you're truly living out and role modeling all the great qualities of great leaders and everything you're saying. As you're speaking, I'm like, oh my God, she's nailing it. She's nailing it. I love it. I love it. So here's my next question. What decision-making shift was most critical to leading at scale without burning yourself or your leaders out?
I would say the biggest thing is really making sure that decision making is distributed. So we're not relying on any one person to be like the final answer, but we're coming together collectively, ensuring that the voice of the front line is heard. I think that's something that plays into my sentiments on creating things that are sustainable and not being so focused on speed. I'll give you an example that I shared with a student this morning. And when I was a manager, we got new IV pumps, and we decided we were going to take that opportunity and design the way a standard hospital room should be configured. And so where the bedside table should go and where the IV pump should go, and everything was designed out, and we had great little graph paper, and all the hospital rooms should look like this. And then we brought in the frontline staff and said, okay, here's how we're going to set up the rooms. Housekeeping knows it's going to be great. Every room's going to look the same. And they're like, this isn't going to work. This is not the way we provide care. Well, as a young manager, I didn't even think about bringing in the people that were actually doing the work. And so now I think that distribution of decision making helps, because it really solidifies the idea that we've got to get the voice of those that we serve. That's why we're leaders, is we want to serve the caregivers. And so I feel like that's really the way we multiply our effect to be able to create sustainable change. The other thing that I think is important is clarity. You've talked a lot about reducing burnout. And one of the things that causes burnout, at least for me and what I've experienced in my organization, is, that feeling of not knowing what's going on, or having questions unanswered, because in that space we create the story for ourselves. And so being very clear, we're working on a new newsletter now, and just providing that clarity, because I think that's what nurses want. They want to be a part of decision making, and they want really clear answers to their questions. And so we owe that to them. And then the last thing that I would say, like really around that question, is using data and not underestimating the ability of nurses to interpret and really value data-driven decision making. It's so eye-opening to see how, as we shift to really evidence-based data decision making, nurses we're scientists too, and we love that, and we want to be a part of that, and we want to be a part of real change that has amazing outcomes. So those are some of the things that I think, really contribute to that multiplication of effect, if you will.
And one thing you said, Stephanie, that I was thinking, a big part of what contributes to burnout in the leader space is decision fatigue, because often leaders feel obligated to make all the decisions. I think when you have a leadership style that there's reciprocal trust and you're able to defer to the expert, like a true high reliability organization, one of the guiding principles is defer to the expert. And once you're confident in your own leadership and you can begin to defer to others, I think that starts to, number one, empower people, which makes them feel valued. And it starts to eliminate some of that decision fatigue. Is there any example that you have that you would say it was that aha moment? You were like, you know what? I just realized that I don't have to have all the answers and I can defer to the expert.
Oh, wow. That's a daily thing, honestly. I wish I could say there's one moment, but I cannot believe how smart the people I work with are. Almost to where, there is probably a small amount of imposter syndrome going on because I'm surrounded by these amazing people. And just when I think something might be like we're hitting a wall or we can't move past, someone will fly in with this like incredible idea that I've never thought of. So what I'm doing for that is just leveraging this team, these amazing CNOs, my executive team peers. We've got a good partnership here between quality and what we call our Office of Clinical Excellence. So I'm just floored every time I get together with them on how dedicated and how smart these nursing leaders are. So I think, I would say I do that daily is leverage, like phone a friend, let's talk about it. I really value that group connection. And, not that I won't have ultimate accountability for a lot of decisions that are made in the organization, and I'm fine with that. But there's such a sense of trust and a respect for, we've got a lot of longevity in the organization, which is just so important and so helpful when you're looking at the future. So that I wish I had one example, but I could probably just name off 3 from today that are, just the trust in the peers is huge and really important. And we want to foster that environment. I think even at the hospital level, there are a lot of opportunities for like nurse managers to trust one another so that they're not always on. You've got to be able to turn your team over to someone else. So we really trying to instill that trust among peers, because that to me is super powerful. And I find that powerful. And, you mentioned a couple of really incredible names in the nurse executive world. And I think just relying on that trust of them as peers as well has been super valuable, as I've sought, guidance or just mentorship.
I think it's great that you said phone a friend, because guess what? I've said this on one of my podcasts before, and I don't know if you heard me say this, Stephanie, but my leader philosophy is humility through acceptance. And as a leader, you have to be able to say, I don't know everything. Sometimes I've misstepped. Can you help me get back on track? You have to be humble enough to accept the fact that you're never going to know everything. And you said that by saying, phone a friend. Did you experience this? Did you experience that? So I think so many things you said, Stephanie, are just incredible qualities. Humility, empowerment, really being able to empower the leaders on your team to make decisions so you're not making all the decisions. And that's not delegation like a dumping ground, it's delegation like development. And I think there's a big difference. And I think it's important, as healthcare, the landscape changes quickly and we become more complex. It's important to have great leaders like yourself that are authentic and humble and empowering. I really want to say I'm blown away by your answer, Stephanie, and I'm so honored to be sitting here having this interview, and welcome to the Shifties. You're an official Shifty.
Awesome. Thank you. I feel so honored to be considered in this elite group.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say thanks again for coming. I'd love to have you come back in a year and we'll get an update on Mercy, see how things are going. And remember, Shifties, your shift makes the difference. Keep shifting. Thanks again, Stephanie. Enjoying the shift? Help us reach more nurse leaders by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app. It takes just a minute, but makes a big impact. Search for The Shift, tap those stars, and share what you love. Your feedback shapes our future episodes and helps others discover us. Remember, rate, review, and amplify the shift today.